You want to know one of my pet peeves? Is when I go on Instagram and someone's like, I did a 45-minute HIIT workout today. I'm like, no, you did not. You did not do a HIIT for 45 minutes.
Welcome to the Team LogoFit Roundtable. I'm your host, Laurin Conlon. Each week, we share the evidence-based practices and communication-driven strategies we use with our clients and give you the tools you need to be successful for life. This week, I'm joined again by Coach Gill, and today we're going to talk all about cardio, everybody's favorite four-letter word, which is not 4 letters, but I messed that up again. Yay for analogy.
Analogy? God.
Hey, you know. Every time I'm like, I really like podcasting, and I'm like, I don't know if anybody likes me podcasting because I'm always like, do I just have this like illogical view of myself?
This is like a bad omen for not letting me do the intro.
No, it's not.
It's clear. I think we can like this podcast if you agree with me.
Like this podcast if you agree with me. Okay. Anyways, we're talking about cardio, which is not a 4-letter word, but oftentimes people equate it to being this like awful thing that they don't want to do. But I really wanted to break it up into 3 parts. So we want to talk about physique enhancement, sport performance, and just general health, because those are all obviously overlapping, but they are different.
Yeah.
And so just looking up, per the ACSM, I'm just going to read a few cardio benefits. And no, I know this sounds silly, I'm reading these, but a lot of times like we actually forget like how beneficial cardio actually is. So these are just a few of the positive things from cardiovascular exercise benefits. Increased blood flow, that sounds so smart. Increased blood flow, decreased changes, that's not right. There's definitely a typo. Decreased chance of stroke, not changes. I was like, changes of stroke.
Changes in my strokes?
Did I have a stroke?
I'm getting better strokes now.
Decreased chances of strokes. Okay, I might need it says combat decline in brain function with age. I might need more cardio.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Increased circulation, improvements in mood and sleep, improvements in cholesterol, the list goes on and on. Clearly I need some of these cognitive benefits and they have not arrived yet.
Yeah.
But I would say that the bodybuilding community definitely has a weird relationship with cardio, specifically.
Love-hate.
Yeah, because everybody's like,
probably mostly hate.
Definitely a hate, and
especially if, I would say general pop, mostly hate. Or
mostly use maybe in the wrong context, right? Like I think the cardio just gets misused and possibly misunderstood. Yeah, it's just so misunderstood. Nobody gets it.
She's so quirky.
Wow, those are really weird laughs. Why am I like, I really gotta pull it together, guys. Okay, I'm still hot from running. I'm like probably having an actual heat stroke, so.
So is cardio good or bad in this sense?
So is cardio good or bad? We're undetermined.
We're getting mixed signals.
Getting a lot of mixed signals. All right. So cardio is not going to ruin your gains, which is what everybody in the bodybuilding community thinks.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't mean that, just do all the cardio, right? Because too much cardio can certainly, it can hinder muscle growth. It can, hurt with recovery and all those things. And it certainly shouldn't take precedence over, all types of training. I mean, there's going to be certain instances, of course, if you're an endurance athlete, but even then, there's an argument for resistance training. But like I said, the conversation really needs to be specific to somebody's goals. So whether we're talking about physique enhancement, sports, or general health. So general health, let's just get into that first, because that's what I would say, like majority of people, even if you are not
dieting.
This is just baseline, want to be a healthier person, which is probably most people listening, let's be honest. So the ACSM and many other groups recommend 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio per week. Of course, this is going to depend on your health status and a bunch of different factors like daily activities. Are you lifting? Are you taking other classes? Like, are you sedentary during work? All these different things. So 150 minutes might sound like a lot to people, but keep in mind that this is for people who are probably not doing other types of training as well, and that's just going to be a really good baseline.
So think about that over the week. It's 5 sessions of 30 minutes. Split that up however you want, but especially if you're not doing anything else alongside that, and if you are a more sedentary person to begin with.
And when you think of that, it's like, all right, well, how can we structure that, right? Because a lot of people are going to immediately balk and say, okay, well, I don't have time for that. I can't do that. And one thing that we love is the 10-minute walks. And that's something that there's so many benefits to. We'd probably do a whole podcast on 10-minute walks because there's like a lot of quirky benefits to it that you wouldn't just. Now I'm hitting the mic with my face. All right. I'm just on a roll today. There's a lot of benefits because sometimes people will do, there actually is a study on this, like where somebody did a 30-minute cardio session versus 3 10-minute walks. And after the 30-minute cardio session, people were more sedentary during the day because they're like, oh, I did a 30-minute cardio session, versus if they broke it up same amount of time, they're actually more active throughout the day. Which is really interesting because technically the session, and we could get into like, well, is that actually doing anything for fat burning or, endurance, etc. We're just talking about general activity for that study. And they were far less active afterwards. And again, we're talking here for general health. We're not talking about sport performance. If you're an endurance athlete, no, doing 3 10-minute walks is not going to cut it, but that's not the conversation. You're like, damn it, there is speed walking at the Olympics, so maybe
I saw that.
they're like killing it. I feel like I could maybe actually do that.
I remember in track and field we used to do that.
What?
Just walking. You never did? Well, you never did track and field.
I did track and field for 4 years and I never walked.
There's a walking one.
What kind of New York bullshit is that?
I remember being in the walking one.
Oh my god!
I was also crazy about shot put, but
there was not a walking.
Yes, it was.
I gotta look into this.
I gotta text my mom now.
Because I was always running, unfortunately,
like
or I was tied up to bands and trying to run.
There's like the walking one, and then there's like the relay.
Yeah, there's relays, but they're running.
Yeah, and there was a walking.
So there was a speed walking relay.
Not the relay, it was just walking.
Speed walking.
Yeah.
Man. All right. Well, I had no experience with that. If we were walking, we were getting yelled at. So my ass better not be walking is what we were doing there. I guess I did all the events. I did 2 mile, and 800. So
I was just there. I don't remember anything about it. Relay, baton, shot put. Shot put is all I really cared about. I'm like, I guess I gotta run.
I love how
if I'm
you
on
did
the team.
shot put and speed walking.
Well, I was also in like the running ones, but I'm like, I'm just here for shot put, but I have to do these running events, so I'll do it.
So many questions. All right, we're gonna fact check this one, and I'll let you guys know next podcast. But getting in 10-minute walks is a great way to add in more activity, and it doesn't you shouldn't look at something like that as like, oh, this is doing nothing for me. Really, what a lot of this has to do, of course, there are cardiovascular benefits of doing more moderate intensity cardio. But if you're doing nothing, and you're like, where should I start? Start with walking. And you can do this at any body size as well. It's going to be really easy on your joints in comparison to other things. If you can get outside and do it again, I think we just need to do a whole podcast about walking, like the benefits of all that, because they're very like intertwined. But the other thing too to consider is just like daily NEAT, and this goes for every category, whether it's physique enhancement, sport performance, or just general health. Be aware of your NEAT, and just on a daily basis, if you are just doing like I said, this 30-minute cardio session, and then you're just like, oh, I'm just going to sit down all day. Well, we need to kind of find ways to force yourself to be active, which again is where those walks can help. You time something like, oh, I had a meal, let me go for a walk. The reason that's helpful mentally is because you're now creating, like, you're stacking these habits, and you're like, oh, okay, this is easy, like I can remember to do that, and I can set aside time for it.
So just like you set aside time for your meal, okay, what's another 10 minutes for that walk?
And it actually helps too, because you all know when we sit down, you're like, oh, I'll just fuck off, I'll look at something. Like if oh, I gotta eat and then I gotta go, like you're less likely. This helps me too when I'm waking up. I'm like, oh, kind of rolling around. I'm like, no, gotta go for a walk, gotta do something, and it just helps. If you have loud dogs, they're gonna force you to get up. But if you
have my dog,
if you have a beagle, he's
gonna throw up at 4 a.m.
Perfect. So for general health, those are the recommendations. 150 minutes of moderate intensity, but wherever you are right now, just start adding this in. Like I listed at the beginning, there are so many benefits to cardio and just being active in general. You're gonna feel a lot better too. So now for bodybuilding, this is where, of course, this is super nuanced, and this is kind of opening like a whole can of worms as far as like how much, when, what type, da-da-da.
Yeah. I guess, should we start with just off-season or in season?
Start with off-season.
All right. Well, for most clients in the off-season, I always like to keep some amount of cardio in, and that's strictly for cardiovascular health and just movement in general, especially if you're thinking about client to client. Some people have different activity levels throughout the day. So if someone works a desk job and they're very sedentary, it's going to be helpful for them to get more activity in via cardio if they're really not doing anything else aside from training, right? For other clients, if they're super active, cardio may be a little bit lower in the off season to account for things, especially when you're working on working food up, growing, all that good stuff. So, I mean, I can't really give like a hard number, but for some clients, it's going to be 0. And for some clients, well, not every client. Most clients, minimum is around 30 minutes, right? And then for some, it could be 60 minutes, 90 minutes.
Yeah, some people really are super sedentary, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we need to get like some walks in, get a few cardio sessions. You know, some people like to take like classes and stuff, you know, this is like a fun way to like, hey, I'm in the off season, I want to, you know.
It's a good way to mix it up and branch
out. You know, whether it's like an Orange Theory class or I'm trying to think of other names.
Like spin classes.
Spin classes, that kind of stuff. You know, sometimes people like to do those. So that could be an option. Or again, just doing something, you know, hey, we're just going to get in a few walks in the morning.
Yeah, step counts are really laid back. I do that with some clients, whether they're dieting or just kind of hanging around.
Yeah, that
it's nothing crazy though. You know, it really depends on their pre-existing activity level where you set that. So there's no right or wrong there.
And for people, I like to think of the step count too as like, let's just have like a baseline of like where you're at. And for some people, if you're always kind of hitting this high number, we don't really need to worry too much about it. You know, but if you're like, yeah, I hit like 4,000 a day, you're like, oh, okay, let's set a target. And I don't need you obsessively tracking that, but just be like, all right, I know that my baseline is around here and I probably need to go for a walk or two and then like go to the gym and walk around and then I probably hit it.
Yeah, so like whether that's like a 10-minute warm-up before you train, a couple of post-meal walks, cool down after you train, that kind of stuff adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah, so it's more about just maintaining kind of basic health and, you know, getting your activity up. And then as far as prep goes, again, this is like a huge variable because there are some people who, I have clients who are very, very busy. They're very active in their job, but they're very busy in their job. I'm thinking of a client who, you know, her and her husband run a PT clinic, and I mean, they're booked all day, and it's like, all right, for her, it's like I'm barely getting my lifting in, right? Or, you know, that's like a big time chunk. So for her, it's like, all right, you know, obviously we had to work cardio up because at some point, here's what happens: we're working with mostly female clients who. You know, obviously they're going to be a lot smaller. It's not like we're working with a 300-pound bodybuilder who, if he goes and does a 30-minute cardio session, that's probably burning a lot of calories. And he can probably eat a lot more. For smaller chicks, you know, at some point it's like, do you want to eat nothing, or can we like add some cardio in so that we're like balancing that deficit? And that's really where, for bodybuilding purposes specifically, looking at the cardio as a deficit. That's why I always hear people say that, you know, and you can achieve the deficit through no cardio, or you can achieve the deficit through a lot of cardio. There are definitely drawbacks from a physique perspective of doing too much cardio. Obviously, you're going to lose muscle. Like that's just a given if you're doing a lot of cardio. And clients typically have a very watery, stressed out look just because of the cortisol spike from all of the cardio.
And typically I like to lean on the side of creating a lot of that deficit via the diet. Obviously it's going to depend on the person and their circumstances. Like, for example, if your work is like literally hectic and most of your time goes there, but also just to spare training changes, because hey, like if we're not getting a lot out of training anymore and your intensity is suffering because you're doing all this cardio, that's something we want to pay attention to too, because if anything, your training is going to be one of the most important things. You know, making sure that we're keeping the volume keeping the volume up, keeping that effort in the gym, and making sure that we're doing what we can to maintain as much lean body mass as possible through resistance training. We don't want to just let that fall to the side just because you have all this cardio to do. So if you're doing all this cardio and your recovery is sucking and you can't get as much as you want out of the training, that's where, hey, like maybe you pull back on the cardio and do more via the diet.
For sure. And my Cliff always used to say, my last coach, you know, you don't have to recover from eating less. And he's very well known for not pushing cardio. He actually pretty much does all of his preps with no cardio. You know, obviously he has a different body, and clearly most people can't do that. But he was always one to prioritize the diet first, to prioritize training, which is obviously going to preserve muscle mass. And again, this is bodybuilding. We're trying to have as much muscle mass as possible, you know, for that division. So that's number one. And then of course we added in cardio. You know, towards the end I was doing an hour a day. You know, that's pretty common. But we started, you know, on the lower end. And some people are, you know, we've worked with clients for a long time, we kind of know, okay, this person tolerates cardio better. Some people, you start adding cardio and they just start dropping, like they get stringy, they don't look good, they don't recover, they're very watery. It's really going to depend. And then there's other periods where you're like, hey, we have to push these next 4 weeks. We're really going to like hammer this, and then we're going to pull back. So cardio for bodybuilding is very nuanced. It is a tool. And when you are in prep, you're not really, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth, you're not really thinking about health. I hate to break it to everybody. If you're doing a bodybuilding show, it's not the healthiest thing in the world to be doing.
Not a health competition.
No, it is certainly not a health competition. You get on stage basically half dead. So if you're doing this, it's not like, oh, how do I maximize? Like, there are certainly healthier ways to do this, and I'm not saying we're like ignoring health, but we're not structuring cardio for that reason, right? We're saying, all right, like
at some point you gotta get it done.
We're doing this for physique purposes. Off season, yes, we can focus on having like kind of a baseline to keep you healthy, keep everything in check. But there is going to be a lot of nuance with prepping. Yeah. And so for the next part we're going to talk about is performance. So this is going to be really, really dependent on the sport, obviously. If we're a purely endurance athlete, you know, clearly cardio is going to be the main staple of the program.
It's going to be tailored towards endurance.
Yes, like you know, if you're doing short-term or long-term type distance, if you're biking, if you're running, if you're doing triathlons, if you're swimming, whatever it is, I would still say, and there are plenty of people who have great resources on this who are endurance athletes. The Hybrid Athlete is a great book I would encourage people to read who are interested in understanding how to blend training, like lifting and cardio. This guy, Alex Viada, he like, I'm going to butcher all of his statistics, but like he does like, he's an amazing endurance athlete and also like deadlifts 500 pounds and like, you know, like he blends both of them pretty well. So I would say that there's always a place for some type of resistance training for even pure endurance athletes, but it's going to be very different. It's going to be, you know, maybe 2 days a week, 30 to 45 minutes. Like it's going to be very different. So if you're an endurance athlete, clearly, you know, strength and flexibility work is going to be kind of your secondary. But if you're a powerlifter, a CrossFitter, a grappler, those are sports where having an aerobic capacity is certainly beneficial, but again, it's going to depend on where you're at, right? So powerlifting, you're probably going to do a little bit more in the off season to kind of help with just like general health, again, getting you back to kind of this like healthier person. And then when you're getting closer to a competition, you're focusing more on, you know,
on your lifts,
training heavy, I'm peaking, I'm going through these really high strength blocks, and you might be doing some very low intensity cardio to help with recovery, but you're probably not hammering cardio. Like, you know, you're not going to hit sessions.
To take away from your lifts.
But if you're doing a grappling competition, right, where you need a large aerobic base, it's going to be important to not only just, you know, work on skill work and work on, you know, rolling, all the live stuff. You're going to want to do some cardio, but it's going to need to be tailored to your competition. And, you know, if you're doing something like jiu-jitsu where there's rounds and you know how long you're going to be doing this in your competition, you can tailor your training towards that. That's what I did when I did mine. And, you know, I did it more just for fun because it clearly didn't matter for me. I'm at a very low level, but it was still fun to be like, all right, let me change this and you know, kind of try to peak my training for it, train more like an athlete versus for hypertrophy, and just like, you know, because that's, I know how to do that, you know, but this was very different. So for performance, it's really going to just matter how much you need it. And again, what season are you in? Are you getting ready for a competition in a few weeks? Are you in an off season? So those are going to be really key things to think about when you are, you know, programming for somebody who is a performance athlete. You know, CrossFit's kind of a tough one because there's, you know, you're kind of involving everything, but typically you know what, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that you know what events you're doing before you compete. So there's, of course, going to be like in the general programming of your gym, or I guess even if you're doing it on your own, there's going to be times where you have more cardio-based training, there's going to be times where there's more lifting-based training.
You can be very specific with your workouts.
Yeah, but I would say that if you know, okay, this event is going to have, way more running in it, or something where I'm a lot more anaerobically powered versus just aerobically powered, or I'm lifting more, you're going to have to tailor, okay, where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, and just understand the sport and what you're training for. So that's going to be really where cardio is very specific as a tool, less about what you look like and more about the actual performance. And again, when you're getting into the depths of any of those things, health is not the number one thing. It's about performance. And they can go together, but it's not often like the only directive thing. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, how do I program cardio? Really just think about, what are your goals? What are you doing? What is the context of your life? Are you focused on your physique, your health, your performance? And you can do all of them. You can be healthy, have good performance, and have great physique. But when you get to the tail ends of those things, you have to think about it in those terms. And to wrap this up, I want to talk about the HIIT versus steady state argument for the end of time, right? Like that's always. Want to know one of my pet peeves is when I go on Instagram and someone's like, I did a 45-minute HIIT workout today.
Dude, I'm like, no,
I literally
you
wrote
did
that.
not. You did not do HIIT for 45 minutes.
I literally wrote what is not HIIT in all caps. Let's just define HIIT. Let's define HIIT cardio, because I think some people maybe don't know, right? So HIIT is high intensity interval training.
It's an all-out max effort of a specific, I would say movement, right? But if we compare movements, so this swipe workout you're seeing on Instagram with jump squats, there's no way you can do that at all out max intensity versus, say, high intensity sprints on a treadmill. Those are two very different things, and you have to be cognizant of what you're using for that all out max effort. And it's going to be something you can't sustain for more than 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds tops. And then you do that for intervals, right? So I can do 4 intervals of 20 seconds with 60 seconds rest in between. That is a HIIT session.
If you're doing HIIT right, you're not doing it for an hour. I promise you won't be able to. If anybody's ever been on an assault bike, here's the best test of if you can do it. Do it for a long time. Get on the assault bike and go all out for 20 seconds. Rest for 40.
There you go.
And repeat that for 5 times. And I bet in that 5-minute period, you're going to get off and you're going to want to die.
Yeah, now, after 4 or 5 intervals.
Bro, that shit is so hard.
Done.
Always. Every time I get on there, I'm like, all right, buckle up. This is going to be gnarly. And it doesn't matter how long the rest is. Doesn't matter. It's brutal, because that's one of the hardest, in my opinion, ways to do HIIT. Just because it is just such an all-out, it's just really full body, you're hitting everything. But there's plenty of ways you can do HIIT. You can do it on a spin bike, you can go run, you can push a prowler, sled.
The sled pushes.
The ropes, med ball, there's a million ways you can do this, right? But it is categorized by this all-out effort, and like Jill said, if you can do this for more than 30 seconds, you're not pushing hard enough. So there's no way you're doing an hour of HIIT. And if somebody's
no way
programmed
you're doing,
that,
a leg HIIT workout.
No. Maybe that's a high intensity workout, because what
maybe
people
it's
are
like
saying,
a circuit-based workout, but that's not HIIT.
No, a circuit-based workout is not HIIT. Just like plyometrics, here's my soapbox. Plyometrics is not jumping on a box for 5 minutes. Okay? All of the, no. If real plyometrics are, again, all-out efforts for a short amount of time, you are doing the highest, farthest, most explosive, whatever it is that you're working on, jump, depth fall, whatever it is, for 5 movements for 3 rounds. That's if you've actually done it right, that's it. You're not hip hop pop da da. Oh no,
hip, hop,
that's not. Now when people say I know what they mean when they're saying it, but again, it's more of just a Metcon circuit type workout.
It gets the definitions all screwed up.
It's confusing for people. So that's why we like to share definitions. It's not because we want to be talking shit to these people. It's just more so that people have an understanding.
It's hey, that's, you're not doing that.
That's not plyometrics, and certainly a circuit-based workout is not HIIT. So HIIT in high intensity interval training, going to be no more than 30 seconds. I would say probably 10 to 30 seconds, and then you're going to want to have a rest. It really depends on what you're trying to do. The shorter the rest is, obviously the harder it's going to be, but that might be necessary for
your 30 to 60 minutes rest.
Seconds?
30
to 60 minutes?
Oh, 30 to 60 seconds.
You're okay.
I'm I just need more time.
One interval an hour,
I'm not doing any HIIT right now, you can probably tell. But
30 to 15 minutes. It's going to depend on, again, are you doing this for a certain sport?
Yeah.
Are you doing this just for health? Are you doing this for, body fat, reduction, etc.? So it's going to be really context dependent if people need to do it. Is there a difference? Yes. I would say that HIIT more so mimics lifting versus traditional low intensity or moderate intensity cardio. Yeah, it is very hard when you do it. So that's why you actually see a lot of times people will program HIIT after legs. And this is actually how I would have people do it. Again, this goes back to that, what I was talking about earlier, that Alex Viada, how he talks about, putting these hard things together. So think about this. If you have 2 leg days and 2 upper body days, right, which is a pretty typical split. If you do legs, which is a hard, we'll say, not to say that upper body days aren't hard, but we all know that leg days are harder than upper body days. You do a leg day on Monday, and then you go and you have an off day, and then Wednesday you do upper body, and then you do HIIT again. And then you take a rest Thursday, and then Friday you're training. You might be able to get away with that, but honestly, you're gonna be now virtually doing hard days every single day and limiting recovery. Whereas if you do it afterwards, if you have legs and then you do HIIT, you're now pairing both the hard sessions together, and then you can actually recover from that. So that when you go to do legs again and you go to do HIIT again, you'll actually be able to give your all out intensity and your effort, and you're going to get more out of it. So I know that it sounds like the last fucking thing on earth that you want to do.
Last time I did HIIT, we did that setup.
I know, it sucks. It sucks, but it really does help, because I've done it the other way, and I've done it where you're basically...
Where you're just picking and choosing where you put it.
Yeah.
Then it's like...
And then you're never recovering, because you're like, oh, I'll do legs, and then I'll do HIIT, and then I'll do upper body, and then I got a glute session, and then HIIT again, and you're like, oh, fuck, I've never recovered. Like, you're always dying.
Yeah.
So we want to eliminate that as much as possible. And I would say that one is not better than the other. You're going to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time with HIIT, which is what's really beneficial about it. But you do have to be aware of
your
recovery. And if you are somebody who's bodybuilding, I really steered away from HIIT a few years ago specifically for physique clients because of the injury risk.
Yeah. I rarely use HIIT anymore, to be honest. But for my prep clients, strictly steady state at this point. It's just easier on recovery. You can sustain it for that amount of time longer. It's easy to add in, if we add 30 minutes, okay, split that up between 3 sessions. It's not like it's going to be incredibly taxing if we do make another change there anyway. But recovery is going to be number one at that point, especially when you're deep into the diet. Your recovery is going to be shit. So why make it harder with your cardio, right? Yeah,
and you're already at this high risk for injury. Yeah. You're already... most people, to be honest, are not very efficient in their movements. Most people are going to tweak their hamstring when sprinting, or most people, you could twist.
I tweaked my knees, both of them.
Yeah, you could twist your ankle. You could do anything, right? So now, if you do something like the assault bike, lower injury risk, right? So if you want to do HIIT, you have to say, okay, pick and choose what's smart here. And again, there are certainly clients that I've done this with. I continue to keep HIIT in for them because they like it, they respond well to it, and everybody's going to be different there. But I would say that it is not necessary to do, but if you do want to do it, there is a way to do it. There's a way not to do it. And like Jill opened up with doing a 45-minute or an hour session of that's not it. You are doing a circuit workout, which is fine, but that is not HIIT. So if you want to add this in, we would say preferentially do it after a lower body day, which sucks. I get it, but make sure that you're fueled beforehand. Maybe have some intra-workout carbs that day.
Have your coffin ready to go when you get home.
Yeah, basically, you'd be comatose. But I think we covered a lot as far as cardio and all the different perspectives. So as always, it's about the nuance and it's about the context of what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. What are your goals? Where are you? Are you starting with no background, or did you used to be, a college sprinter? Okay, you can probably go back and you probably have a better base than some other people, or you have better running mechanics, or whatever it might be, or you've been training for a triathlon for 5 years. Yeah, you can probably have a higher work capacity. Or you're I haven't done cardio in 15 years. Okay, let's just start with some walking, right? So it's really going to depend on the person. But cardio should not be a non-4-letter word. It is a great thing. It does improve health and so many different functions, like I said in the beginning. So we encourage it, although we don't encourage running down the street in the middle of the in the middle of the day in light the only time I wear light colored pants, of course, so now I'm sweating and everybody can see it. Great. So thankfully I always have a flannel because you never know what's gonna happen.
That's why flannels are made.
Yeah, that's why flannels are made, for sweating.
Sweaty butt.
Perfect. When you
Put
don't
that on a t-shirt.
This is why flannels are made.
Sweaty butt.
So
Did I just kick you?
No, you didn't, but it's all good.
Okay.
just broke your toe kicking the table. So as always, if you guys found value in the show, please share and subscribe to our YouTube channel and our we also have the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. This really helps us grow the show and continue the mission to educate more people in our industry. And if you have any other questions for us or you want to apply for coaching, check out some of the articles that we've written. You can visit teamlocofit.com. And that's all for this time, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Howdy.
What? Bye.